welcome to the Sports Wrap. And George, I think this is like 16 or 17, but who's counting anymore? I mean, if somebody is, they've got nothing better to do.
They don't.
I'm going to say this I walked into the grocery store yesterday afternoon. Somebody said to me, I don't like sports, but I enjoy watching your show. And I'm like, if you don't enjoy sports, why are you watching the show? And they're like, you guys just have a good report. I like listening to you guys converse about things. And I'm like, well, I guess there you go. So thanks for watching. I don't know. People wonder why we're here. Sometimes I wonder why we're here, but we have fun and we're doing it. And so until they take the camera away from us permanently, I guess we'll keep doing it.
They haven't taken the camera away.
Let's start with Gopher basketball.
Good idea.
Let's finish with the Super Bowl and let's start with Gopher basketball.
I have no problem with that at all.
So last Thursday we were here at the Rainier Muni, and about the time we were getting that was Wednesday. Thursday was the next day. The Gophers were playing at Ohio State, and I think if you go back and watch the show, if you want to take the time to do that, you'll find out that I was not very hopeful that the Gophers were going to win. And as I was following along on my phone while I was doing what I was doing last Thursday night, I wasn't even hopeful that they were going to win then. But then Marcus Carr showed up in the last minute and kind of took care of business, and the Gophers got a huge road win.
Well, huge. That Ohio State, how many times have they won there in the last 20 years? And it's just
not many.
No, and they were able to. It was kind of like a Band-Aid win, and one would get a little soft. Somebody else would pick it up, and Marcus was one of them. And Carr started drilling a few, and Arturo is he's becoming one of the dominant centers in the Big Ten, and it was just a fun game to watch.
Okay.
And and Sue and I were both giggly and gaggly, and we like Gopher sports, and so that was fun to watch. And I'll tell you, speaking of Daniel Oteo, he is going to be playing against Kofi Cockburn tonight. And Kofi has been three or four times this year, freshman player of the year. He is really a physical specimen. I want to talk about another physical basketball specimen a little bit, but if you want to see a real good show tonight, it's 6:30, Big Ten Network, I believe. Just see if Champaign is tough. Illinois is one of the hottest teams in the country right now. They're tied for the lead in the Big Ten with Michigan State, and they're the leading rebounder in the conference, which, in my estimation, transfers to scores.
Absolutely.
And so I think that this is going to be a real good game.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a real good game. We talk about Arturo, and I think I get concerned again, and I'm going to reiterate what I think I've said the last 2 weeks. He's got a lot of chirping going on, a lot of talking, and I don't know if he's starting it, if that helps him to motivate to play better. I just hope that it doesn't get into a Kansas State-Kansas melee someday, because that's the kind of thing that I see coming, and when it happens, it's not going to be a pretty situation. So I hope that I'm not being prognosticating what's going to happen on that, but I'm concerned about Daniel and his possible lack of control of his emotions. Sometimes you just got to walk away, but he likes to talk.
Well, if the golf gets in the way tonight, he'll get hammered.
Well, that's what I'm afraid is going to.
Kofi's not going to put up with that, and he'll just stuff it in him.
Well, and and I hope that both sides can take it to that. Well, we kind of just glazed over the Sunday game against Michigan State when I didn't really get to watch a whole bunch, and we'll talk more about why maybe I didn't watch a whole bunch of the Gopher game, but it really didn't sound like it was worth watching to me.
No, you didn't miss a whole lot, and I'll tell you what, Michigan State has a way of coming on you slow and then swatting you and picking up their 12 and 15 point lead and playing basketball from there. And I've seen them do it over and over and over again, and that's what they did on Sunday.
Yeah, the Gophers were right there till about 4, 5, 6 minutes left in the first half, and then Michigan State went on a run right before half, and then it almost, like you said, it almost like the Gophers went in the locker room like, oh gosh, we're down by whatever it was, 8, 10, 12 points, whatever it was. And yeah, they just kind of put the lead out there, and then they just cruised in with a nice win. And so yeah, the whole Kobe thing came to light just as the Gopher game was starting. So that kind of put a squash on things.
Well, I just to kind of run through this, Danny Oturu is first in the Big Ten in rebounds. Marcus Carr is 8th in the country in assists per game and leads the Big Ten in minutes per game played. Gabe Kalsher leads the Big Ten in threes.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I would not have guessed that.
No, I
would not have guessed that.
I was a little bit surprised at that as well. But this is going to be a good game tonight. I'm scooting home from here and maybe grabbing a pizza and sit down with my hound dogs. And
I might have to try to maybe find a way to get that on my phone while I'm watching the girls' basketball and/or hockey games tonight, and talk about that. So. You want to talk a little bit about Kobe Bryant, as long as I open the can of worms on it?
I
should just say Kobe Bryant, because this is one of my complaints about what went on Sunday and Monday. The 9 people who passed away in the helicopter crash.
Well, and I read the New York Times every day, and I read the sports column. I swear, 15 of the 15 straight columns were about Kobe Bryant. Both the good and the bad. But, he seemed to come on his own here the last 10 years or so and matured into a really remarkable man. And, there were so many people, so many kids, not just kids. LeBron James has tears in his eyes when he's talking about him. He had a way of affecting a lot of people. And it's any time that you lose a guy with that much talent, with a beautiful daughter and all the rest of that, it is tragic, but we're going to miss him.
Yeah, it's, the kids asked me Monday morning at school about it, and I said, Kobe Bryant, as you said, matured into what we would think, as far as we know, a pretty good husband, very good father, and the rest of that. I still go back to 20 years ago or whenever that happened in Colorado, and it's still sat with me, and it's been in my perception of Kobe Bryant since then. I know everybody makes mistakes, and we get over them, and we mature, and we become better men, women, people, whatever it is. But it seemed like he threw his money at that one to make that one go away, and it just never really sat with me. And it's shouldn't be talking about the people have passed poorly, so I'll finish it there. But talking about getting an Academy Award, the coaching his daughter, and to me, the little segment from Jimmy Kimmel. I don't know if you saw it, but it's out there on. I'm sure if you went and looked up Jimmy Kimmel and Kobe Bryant, it would come up on YouTube, and he talked about his daughter and the one who was killed in the crash, and he said, when I'm walking in public, he said, people come up and he say, "Come on, man, Kobe, you guys got to have a boy to carry on the legacy," and the daughter would be like, "Hey, I'm right here. I got this. I got this under control." So that was one thing, and then I can't think of the sportscaster from ESPN who kind of paid tribute to Kobe the other day, but it's also out there on Twitter, and she was talking about she was pregnant the first time she ever met Kobe, and she wanted to get a picture, and she said we really didn't get the picture for like 15 minutes because Kobe wanted to know about the baby and whatever else and about having kids, and so she asked him, are you going to try to have a son? Because you got 4 daughters. Are you ever going to try to have a son? And he said, I would take 4 more daughters. He said, that's where this whole I'm a daddy, I'm a girl's dad, and everything else kind of came from. And I can associate with that. I got 3 daughters of my own, and finally got that boy late in life, and so there's some similarities in that conversation. So it's been a week where a lot of things have come up, and I think the thing that maybe hit home with me was everybody talks about all these young kids. With me teaching, talk about kids. And that LeBron James is the greatest ever. And I understand why they think that. There's a certain people out there that think Kobe Bryant is the greatest ever. And of course, if you come from my age, Michael Jordan is the greatest ever. And if you go back maybe to your age, it might be Kareem or Wilt or who, you know. And so we'll sit there and
Bill
argue
Russell.
it. Yeah, Bill Russell. And so I thought it was interesting. Ty Mario Matthew, who used to play at LSU, the Honey Badger. I read a tweet on his this afternoon after school was over when I was sitting at home thinking about what we were going to talk about today. And he said, you know what? Kobe's death has kind of put it into perspective that we need to quit arguing about who the best is. They were all great.
They were all great.
They were all great. They all had their time when they were great.
Yeah.
You cannot really compare Kareem and Russell to Michael Jordan because they are in different games at different times. You know, we sit here and talk about Steph Curry. To me, Steph Curry can shoot the bejeebers out of a basketball. That makes him a great basketball player. He can score. He can go to the hoop. Obviously, he doesn't dunk and do a lot of those kinds of things because that's not his game. But to me, Steph Curry is a heck of a basketball player, and I think the game is changing because
It has.
Michael Jordan wasn't not known for shooting threes. But by gosh, that's what people,
he got known for.
This is what people these days are getting known for, is shooting the three and doing other things. So the game has evolved, and so it's kind of made us pause and think and do some things. And obviously the whole death thing, I mean, it unfortunately had to come to that, but sometimes these things happen.
Well, and you know, and I'll tell you what, this is kind of what I was looking at it, the iconic men in sports, and there are many, and they're all great. But I remember Jackie Robinson's number being 42, and I remember Kobe Bryant's number being 24. And I'll go to my death knowing those numbers and who they were. I'm not sure I could give you another half a dozen numbers of sports people, but 42 and 24, and when a whole team comes out wearing 24.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't.
Takes you back.
I guess in my mind, I don't think I realized what Kobe meant to this generation.
Yes.
Tennis players, hockey players, the whole spectrum, and how people looked at his tenacity and his will and his fight to want to win. And
talk about going out. He scored 60 points his last game. 60 points.
Yeah,
that's a lot of points.
And scored 81 in the game once. That's the second most ever in a game.
Yes.
So
Yes.
there's some stuff there. As long as we're talking about people passing, let's talk about Chris Doleman, the Vikings defensive end who passed away from brain cancer this week. 58, 59 years old, somewhere in there, and old number 56. There were just some things for a guy in my age group that he was unbelievable.
Well, they call them edge rushers now, and he was one of the originals.
He was one of the original. I mean, he kind of filled that. He wasn't necessarily a stand-up guy. He put his hand on the ground. He wasn't a Lawrence Taylor kind who stood up in a two-point stance. He put his hand on the ground, and off he went. And the one thing that I will say about Chris Doleman, and people might disagree with me, we think about pass rushers today, and I see pass rushers who only worry about rushing, doing the pass rushing.
He could play the run.
He also played the run as well, and played a team type of thing, and still was considered one of the best pass rushers ever. So, like I said, these things usually happen in threes, and that's two biggies. I hope the third one, like I said, don't know who that's going to be, but it seems we lost two pretty big ones, especially if you're a Vikings fan. Obviously a Hall of Famer and everything else, so a tough week there.
Yeah, it was. It was.
Let's talk a little bit of Gopher Wrestling. If you got a stack of papers in there on that.
I do.
And of course, Friday night, Ohio State was at Iowa.
Yep.
And of course, that was a great match to watch.
It was.
I took part in that and watched, and Iowa's got 9 wrestlers out of 10 ranked in the top 5. Did it say?
Well, let's just kick that around, because tomorrow night Penn State's coming to town.
You want to kick that around?
Kick that around. Penn State and Iowa's coming to town, and so they are going to match up their 10 with Penn State's 10, and I'm telling you, Fur is going to fly.
It's going to be a heck of a.
It's really going to be a heck
Wish
of a
I was going to be home to watch it.
Well, that's what happens when you don't stay home.
That's what happens when you don't stay home. So that was great stuff. So then Ohio State's in Iowa, and then they come up to Minnesota, and there were some great matches on Sunday night.
There were some great matches, and I tell you, as I take a look here at my roster, Devin Skatska, we had to win that.
Yeah.
And we didn't, and he just got out wrestled. Nice close match.
Yeah.
But that's a hardcore Big Ten wrestling match, and when you have Skatska's rated 8th, I think the other guy, what was he?
Seventh, I think it was. Something like that.
And what a heck of that was the best wrestling match of the night.
Yeah, it was. And the thing is, like you said, that was maybe a tipping point in the dual meet, the team score. But and then what else? What else did you see?
Well, Gable Steveson, he's not a pinner, but boy, can he wrestle. And it's just like.
So, is that? I'll ask, because you're a wrestling coach, and I'm going to pick your wrestling coach brain tonight.
Sure.
If you don't enjoy talking wrestling, college and high school wrestling, you can, because this is going to go for like 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 minutes. I don't know, but I got a bone to pick with what happened on Sunday night, and we'll get there. You say that Gable Steveson is not a pinner. Is that a negative for a wrestler?
No, it's a certain style of wrestling. You remember a year or so ago we interviewed Jerry Cleveland.
Yeah.
He was a mat wrestler, and you asked me, did you work the mat?
Explain that to people so they understand what a mat wrestler is.
A mat wrestler is riding and having knees on the mat and rolling around and cradles and half Nelsons and bar arms and all like that.
And you kind of had your wrestlers, they were kind of stand up on 2 feet, right?
I went to a wrestling clinic one time, met a guy, and he changed my life. And he says, what you want to do is work from the feet. And we started a whole new program from that point, and I spent the last 5 years of my career really thinking takedowns. Not that we didn't work on mat wrestling, we had to because we were wrestling against mat wrestlers up here, some very good ones.
Right.
But we wanted to concentrate on takedowns, and we took a number of kids to the state tournament that if we would have concentrated solely on mats, I'm not sure we would have won it. So we like being on the feet.
So having said that, and not being a pin, so not being a guy who makes a lot of pins is not a negative.
Well, no, not necessarily, but in this case, you took a look, and we really needed 6. And you could see that coming in, because we lost Skitska, and we knew that somewhere along the line there, and I think Mitch McKee got beat, and there was, some of these guys that we've actually really been counting on to win, and they simply didn't. And so that was the difference. And then, if you could get Big Gable to stick the guy, but the guy just did not want to be stuck. And there's an old saying: you can't pin him until he wants you to. And
his sole goal in life was not to get pinned.
His sole goal in life was not to get pinned.
So obviously that happened, and then after the heavyweights, we went into the lighter weights, and I guess here's where I get maybe more into my gripe. Okay, and you can, like I said, you can tell me if I'm wrong, and I'll understand. So we get to the final match of the night. The Gophers are down in the dual meet 1913, and you get to the last one, and I'm going to make sure I get these names right. It was Brayton Lee.
Brayton Lee
was taking on a guy, and they are both ranked in the top 6 or 7, and this guy from Ohio State, I don't remember what his name is, and if somebody said it, I'd be like, that's the guy's name. This son of a gun, he could do the splits with his legs, and you couldn't get 2 legs. You couldn't get a takedown on this guy. He was absolutely amazing. But here comes my point. The Gophers are down by 6 points. The only way the Gophers can have a chance to win the duel is to get a pin. And it didn't look like to me like that was ever on the mind of the wrestler. And so to me, as a head coach, do you say it's more important for my guy to go out and wrestle his match than to worry about the dual score.
Well, especially at this level, I got to tell you, there are relatively few pins because everybody's good wrestler.
Yeah.
And and so there aren't a lot of pins, and you'll see them once in a while. But when you get that 5, get those tech falls and those pins, boy, that really spreads the gap, and you love it. 3s and 3s, you'll take them in every time, but you can still be beat by a pin. So you want to keep that going. But
and to me, like I said, so I guess my question is, in the mind of a head wrestling coach, who when you get to the NCAA meet, you are not worrying about duels.
No. You're not worried about pins.
Are you? Well, you are at the NCAA. You'll take those extra points that you get if they come. So do you? I mean, the duel is more of a fan thing. Oh, hey, we beat Ohio State. Blah blah blah. We're the best.
It's a totally different strategy than a tournament match, because a tournament, it's nice to get extra things, but what your number one deal is to win and go on the bracket. And in duels, you have to shuffle around. You have to shuffle weights around to get points. You have to shuffle weights around to give up 3 as opposed to 6. So you can do a lot different things with a duel than you can with a tournament.
Okay, so what I hear you saying to me, and you, like I said, this is a discussion I want to have. As a wrestling fan, as a guy who at the end of the night wants to say, we won, I got to let that go, because that's not always what's best for the team. In wrestling, hockey, I think, basketball, football, maybe not so much. But when you got 10 different wrestlers, maybe in a track meet, maybe in a cross-country meet, maybe the same thing, you're telling me that winning and losing a duel is a second or third thought down the line as far as importance to a head wrestling coach.
Well, no, I can't say that either, because I love winning duels. Don't get me wrong, but they're just approached in different ways. Once you get to the region tournaments, or in this case the Big Tens, you're worried about your won-loss record, how you're going to be seeded, and whether or not you can beat this person.
And so, and I guess maybe that's the point I want to make sure that I'm understanding. So when Brayton Lee is not going for a pin, and I'm sitting there wanting to throw something at the TV or yell at the TV and say, "Come on, we need the pin to tie it up at 19." Brayton Lee really needs to worry about his win-loss record, because getting pinned would possibly seed him worse in the Big Ten tournament and in the NCAA wrestling
tournament. And it's also in the third period, and third period pins are hard to come by unless the other guy is gassed. A lot of times you'll see them; they'll get nailed with a cradle, or they'll get nailed with some kind of strange takedown that they didn't see, and they get put on their back and they get pinned. A lot of times you'll see they really get a scramble, and they're rolling around. You can't tell who's going to come out, and all of a sudden, bam, and there's a guy on his back. How did he get there? He doesn't even know. And so once they start rolling around, especially those younger guys, I'm taking a look at 125-pounder Patrick McKee. Now he's rated 12th. This is the first week that he's been rated. This is Mitch McKee's little brother. They're all from St. Michael. This kid, he's really coming on. He's coming on very well.
He is. I really believe that.
17-5, and he's going to be fun to watch. Now, another kid that came on here, Boo Dryden. Boo Dryden's a brand new kid, and he's just wrestled a few times for the Gophers. He transferred from Oklahoma, but he was a 2-time a junior college national champion, and the 3-time state champion out of Kansas, and he's coming out at 133, and I guess this kid is real explosive. A Jerry Cleveland type guy, just give it whatever he's got for as long as he's got it. And and when you have a scrambling wrestler like that, sometimes they'll wind up on their back. Even Cleveland would say, "Jesus, you roll around." I didn't care. I just went for everything.
Yeah, I agree. There was a guy for the Gophers 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago at 157. I've been trying to think of his name all week without looking it up on the internet. And he was one of those guys who went for these crazy moves. You'd have hold of his leg. He'd jump up in the air and try to twist out of it. And I can't think of his name.
I will come up with this sooner or later too. But
anyway,
you watch me. How did he do that?
And why would he do that? Why would he? What do you do? Oh yeah. One of those things.
Yes.
So, And that's the great thing about wrestling. I think especially the 125s, the maybe up to about 165, they're so quick, they're so explosive. And then you get up into those bigger weights, and obviously the power and the strength and sometimes it's amazing. So,
well, you watching that Ohio State Iowa match, or you'd watch these guys. The muscle structure on these kids. They're 189 pounds. They're probably actually about a 210-pounder naturally, and they come down and they train to get this level. But they are really pieced together, these kids. They're super, super strong.
Yeah, the high school wrestling is nearly coming to an end. About 2 weeks until they start their tournaments, and of course the colleges. I think the Big Tens are the first weekend in March, and then of course 2 weeks later, George and I will be down at the U.S. Bank for the NCAA's,
and that's coming up.
And we're not excited at all about that, folks.
Yes, no, that should be.
It's just a whole 3 days of pure wrestling.
The Gophers close out the season in late March across the river at U.S. Bank Stadium for the 2020 NCAA Championships lasting from 19 to 21. The event will be held in the football stadium for the first time ever. And I think that there are seats down there, and if you really want to see some tremendous wrestling.
Well, and I would say that if you're going to want to go watch that tremendous wrestling, you bring your binoculars with, because you're going to be sitting a little bit away. It's not like you're sitting at the arena, and even the arenas you can be pretty far away. But I'm excited just to go see the spectacle, to be part of the spectacle. And like I said, I've already got the binoculars packed up. We can go today. I'm ready to go. I'm excited. Like I said, it's something that I've been.
Anyway, the Gophers are going to Indiana this weekend. They have Purdue and Indiana.
Okay.
Now, you were talking about Braden Lee. He is from Indiana, and his hometown's about 70 miles away from Lafayette. So he will be having all kinds of family there. And we had Leroy Vega, a Bronco or Gopher wrestler, three-time All-American, just a tremendous 33-pounder. He's the head coach at Indiana, and Indiana is at Purdue.
I'm not sure.
I think he's at Indiana. Oh, he is at Purdue.
At Purdue.
And so this is his first year, so there's some Gopher attachments down there. This should be a fun one to watch. I'm personally going to be watching the Penn State Iowa match, but that's another thing.
That's another thing. I probably will have to watch it on replay at some point, because it should be a dandy. Number 1 versus number 2 in the nation in any sport. I don't care if it's tiddlywinks. That probably is worth your time to watch.
If you take a look at the domination that these two teams have held collegiate wrestling for so long.
They were showing during the Ohio State and Iowa matchup that for the last 11 years, those three teams, Ohio State, Penn State, or 12 years, excuse me, and Iowa, those are the only three teams that have won national championships. And it certainly would seem that will happen again this year, that it's going to come down to Iowa or Penn State. I don't see anybody being able to compete with them when you get to the NCAA tournament. It's going to come down to those two, and it could come down to some great matches on Saturday night.
It sure could.
And like I said, it's going to be fun to see how they bring the spotlight in.
We are going to watch Gable Steveson become national champion. I am convinced of that. I don't see anybody out there that's going to beat him. If they were that good, they're probably injured. It's a tough thing. Yeah. So if he can maintain and not get injured, which it's easy to do in wrestling, all you have to do is fall down, But right now, he is incredible. No two ways about it.
Did you follow along on the Arrowhead 135 at all this week? The big race from International Falls to Tower?
They started off and woke up my dogs and got everybody mad.
I knew that was coming. Yeah. I was prepared. I was not shocked when the fireworks went off on Monday morning. And, of course, pretty fair weather.
It was fair weather. Almost too fair.
Almost too fair. I agree. Yeah. Almost too nice. Some great times out there. Boy, I'll tell you, the biker won in the men's in 14 hours and 3 minutes. 135 miles. By the gauge it says 130, I think, with the path. In 14 hours.
That is incredible.
So that's about 9 miles an hour averaged on a bike through the snow, essentially. An outstanding time. Women's winner was in a little over 20 hours. The skiers, it was perfect conditions, they said, for the skiers.
It was, huh?
21 hours for the men, almost 35 hours for the women's winner. And then the runners, the men's runner, now think about this. It's 130 miles. The men's winner, I don't have his name written down here, won in 30 hours and 45 minutes.
That is really good time. I know people that run those races.
That's 31 hours to go 130 miles, so that's about 4 miles an hour. You say, well, that's not very good. Well, think about running 130 miles, folks. I mean, to think sleeping, going to the bathroom, eating, making a fire to warm up, all the rest of that stuff. He broke the record by over 3.5 hours.
Well, you know, and I'm going to tell you, these guys stay awake and they work so hard that they become, it's almost a hallucinogenic experience.
Absolutely.
And they, you know, they hadn't slept, they just keep on going. My friend Bill Howard does 100-mile races all the time. And I said, you know, why do you do that? And he called his wife after one race that he ran last winter. He called his wife, and before she could say hello, he passed out and fell asleep. And so you just, you're that exhausted that it just totally, literally wipes you right out. So, you know, I got all the respect in the world for these people.
Well, I use the word crazy. To me, that's craziness, but some people live for crazy.
They do.
And that's what they do. All respect. All respect.
As a wrestling coach, I've been told that.
So have you been getting up in the middle of the night to watch the Australian Open?
Well, I caught bits and pieces of it, and it's solely because of you.
Yes!
They said last night that the crowd was rowdy.
Well, it was 99 degrees. It was the warmest day they've had at the Australian Open, and usually 99 is a pretty typical day in Melbourne, but yesterday was the warmest, and the women's semifinals were yesterday, and an American won to get to the finals, and it's not Coco Gauff, and it is not Serena Williams, it's Sofia Kenin, and she's a little spark plug. I don't know how else to explain.
So how long did that match last? 3.5?
No, her match against the number one player in the world, Ash Bartley. Bartley went about an hour and 50 minutes. Maybe it went to 2 hours because it was 7-6, 7-5. It was very close. And then the other semifinal, same score, 7-6, 7-6. So things went through that way. But this Sofia Kenin, she was videotaped as like a prodigy at like 5 or 7 years old, and she supposedly said that she would take Annie Murray's serve and she would return it no problem at the age of 7. So she's been kind of biding her time, and she's ranked like 14th in the world, but she's found something, and whatever it is, she's got it. She's into the Australian Open final, and then of course last night the Djokovic and Roger Federer match.
That was what I was talking about.
50th time they've played. Roger Federer looked outstanding early. Groin injury, all beside it.
So how old is he? He's
38.
38.
And he looked good early. Looked like he was going to win the first set easily. He was up 5-2. Ended up losing it in a tiebreak, and then just things. Djokovic just too young, too much. And so the other semifinal is tonight. Zverev and Dominic Thiem, who took out Rafael Nadal. Thank you, Dominic. Dom, I appreciate that. I'm not a Rafael Nadal fan, and so they play the semifinal to see who takes on Djokovic. So 2:30 Saturday morning, 2:30 a.m. Get up, watch the women's final, and then Sunday morning, 2:30 a.m. Get up and watch the men's final. That's on my dossier. Get a nap in the middle of the day, and then get ready for the Super Bowl on Sunday night.
You must be fun at 3 o'clock in the afternoon at school.
Well, I didn't get up and watch much during the. I had to give that up. I used to do that. No more. But I did watch a little bit. I did get up about 2 o'clock, and I'm like, all right, I'll stay up and watch the first set. So I did get up and watch the first set, but then I went back to sleep.
I used to like when they ran the America's Cup down there.
Yes.
And they would start that thing at 1 o'clock in the morning. I'd turn it on and put on my recorder, and then get up at 5 and watch the end.
Watch the whole thing.
And and just at the time you could just. But I would do that all the time, and before wrestling matches and stuff when you traveled. Hey, it's good to get your sport out of the way.
It's good to get your sport going on.
Yeah.
Well, we got to talk about the Super Bowl.
We do.
And can I say and I think it has to do with the Kobe thing, but it's been a very quiet week at the Super Bowl. There hasn't been much splash, much whatever said, he said this, she said that, this happened, whatever else. Actually, it's kind of refreshing not to have that going on.
Well, it is.
But Richard Sherman did come basically up. The owners want 18 games. And they would like to compromise at 17. And Richard Sherman, the cornerback for the Niners, basically said, over my dead body, I am going to make sure that this does not happen. We are not playing a 17th regular season game. We are definitely not going for 18. So it's kind of interesting. They were talking about it on PTI this afternoon. And, the Canadian Football League plays 18. So...
No, in the old days they played 12 and they thought that was plenty, and even 10 or 10. I remember when it went to 12.
And Tony Kornheiser came up with something interesting. I thought you can play 18 regular season games, but you're only eligible to play 16. So if you're Tom Brady and your team's,
you got to sit two.
You got to sit 2 games.
Oh wow!
So maybe because. Richard Sherman's thing is, the NFL owners are always saying player safety is number one. Player safety is number one. Well, if player safety is number one, you're not going to add a 17th or an 18th game. So would that not be interesting to say, okay, we're only going to have 14 games out of a 16-game schedule maybe. We can only play 14 regular season games instead of the full 16. And now maybe the rosters have to become a little bit deeper. More guys on the team. Now you're not beating up each other so much in practice. Not that they are hardly anymore, because that doesn't happen. But would that not be an interesting concept to decide, hey, my starting quarterback, which starting quarterback is not going to start in the league this week, and what would that do to the gamblers and everything else out there? Wow, that really sparked my interest.
And it's really kind of amazing. We talked the other day about Pete Rose being eligible. Now Major League Baseball is courting gambling. What are you going to do with that now? And it's just, you see this and you just think gambling is such a...
See you tomorrow, maybe.
Fans. But gambling's a big part of it. And I mean, I've been taking a look at predictions all along. I don't know what .-7 means. And it's just, in the old days, you were a 7-point favorite or 3-point underdog or something like that. Boy,
they got lots of stuff going on.
They got lots of stuff going on now.
So what have you heard with the Super Bowl? I mean, like I said, it's been so little, so whatever.
This is kind of the way I've been boiling it down for a couple days. For one thing,
boil it down for us.
I got a sheet of the Super Bowl starters.
Okay.
The number one guy in the Super Bowl starters is Pat Mahone. The second one is George Kittle. The third one is Chris Jones, defensive end. The other one is Nick Bosa, a defensive end from San Francisco. And then you have Travis Kelsey, who is...
That's fine, thanks. Everybody probably can see us a whole lot better. That might not be a good thing, but...
You see,
anyway.
So from here, you have 2, 4, 5. You have 2 tight ends, 2 defensive ends, and a quarterback. Now, this is got to be...
Where the heck are the offensive linemen? Because if you watched last week's show, Anyway, keep going.
No, and then so we go right down. Here, Mitchell Schwartz, he's a tackle. So there's an offensive lineman and a very good one. DeForest Buckner, a defensive tackle from San Francisco, and also a very good one. And a cornerback, Richard Sherman, who is going to have his hands full Sunday.
It's going to be exciting.
It does. And then Tyrone Matthew from Kansas City. Tyreek Hill, who nobody can catch. In fact, I heard today that he's getting permission to try out for the Olympics this summer. And
that's how fast he is. I agree.
That's how fast he is. And they've got 3 guys that are legitimate 4-4, 4-5 men, and they're just out and out hard to track. And so they've got that. And so I just go on here. I've got Eric Armstead, another defensive end from San Francisco. Frank Clark, a defensive end from Kansas City, and Jimmy Ward, a free safety. That's the first 13, and those are some of the finest football players in the world.
Yeah, they're good. They're good.
And all mostly linemen.
So So who's got the advantage?
I'm not sure, but I'm going to tell you, I'm going to go with the running game because I think I agree with you, San Francisco's offensive line is going to, on balance, if they can control a very good Kansas City defensive line, and I'm not sure that Coleman is, whether he's playing or not. I understand he's not.
Okay.
And so, but they still have two good running backs, and also it's kind of like, and they talked about this. They talked about most teams are using 11 formation, mean one back, one tight end, one wide receiver, and they says people are going now to 22s, two running backs, two tight ends, and so they've been doing 22s. They run 22s,
and those tight ends are on the same side of the line of scrimmage.
They can, and so San Francisco does it more than every team in the NFL except for the Minnesota Vikings, and they run more 22s than any. But they got all those backs,
yep.
And so they're able to do that. But I just see right now that for Kansas City to win, they're going to have to beat San Francisco's offensive line. If they do that, they get the win. If San Francisco wins, they have to control those incredible wide receivers and not let Mahomes get out of the pocket.
Yeah, and that's easier said than done.
Yes.
I said this last week, I believe, here when we taped the show, and I'll still say it again. 30 points is the magic number.
Mm-hmm.
If both teams are under 30, San Francisco wins this football game.
I agree.
If both teams, if one team gets above 30, then it's Kansas City's game, because I'm not saying San Francisco can't score 40 points. They can, but they're not a big play. They're a grinder on you, and so they're trying to shorten the game. They're trying to whatever. Now they can, some defenses can get interceptions, returns, kick returns, all that stuff adds into it and could put that for naught. But to me, I was interested. PTI was talking about the Super Bowl today, or excuse me, Around the Horn. Four of the four columnists, 3 picked Kansas City, 1 picked San Francisco. I thought that would be just vice versa. Maybe I'm not giving Kansas City enough love. I think this is San Francisco's game to lose. I think if they play their game, they win. Now, some people might say, well, if Kansas City can score points and run around and do their thing,
they can.
But to me, San Francisco will take the air out of that game, and Pat Mahomes is sitting on the sideline for 6, 7, 8 minutes of a quarter. He's a rhythm guy. He likes to be out there doing it multiple times, over and over and over again. And so to me, that's the difference in the ball game. And if San Francisco is able to ball control, and Kansas City, I don't think worries about ball control. They're about that big strike. And so both teams actually could have their stuff going on, and it could be a hell of a ball game.
But I got to tell you this about Jimmy Garoppolo. He not only has a great offensive line to work with, an incredible tight end in George Kittle, but he's got an offensive coordinator that calls brilliant plays, an extraordinary good head coach, and they've got, again, go back to John Lynch.
Well, yeah, and Kyle Shanahan with his dad Mike, how did Denver win Super Bowls? Well, everybody says, well, because of this, this, and this. No, it was because they had an offensive line, and they knew how to block, and they knew how to run the football, and they got things done. We can go back and we can talk about Terrell Davis for Denver. One year, I think if I remember right, the number, don't quote me on this, 2,008 yards I think he got 1 year. 2 years later, I think he was out of football.
He was.
But guess what? Denver brings in the next running back that you've never heard of before, and by gosh, he goes for like 1,700 yards. And then 2 years later, he's not even running the football anymore because they brought in the next guy. So to me, San Francisco has taken the Denver game plan, father to son, and the son has said, this is how you win championships. And the Vikings are trying to do that, but the difference is San Francisco's got themselves an offensive line to do this, and the Vikings don't have that type of offensive line. And so, I mean, I talked about this last week. San Francisco running back, 220 yards. I'm telling you, I can't think of his name right now. But he got cut 7 times. I can tell you about that. And he ran for 220 yards in a playoff game. Now, you can't tell me that's because he's the greatest running back ever. He's not Derrick Henry. He's not all these other guys.
No.
It's because he's got an offensive line in front. So, to me, that's the difference in this ball game, and that's why San Francisco wins.
I love telling running backs they can't do it without the line because that's simply a fact of football. And You know, and like I say, if they can control those things, and then Mahomes, there's always this variable that you really can't count on because you've never seen it before. You know, I mean, throwing with his opposite hand and, you know, jumping up. I mean, he does things that nobody else can do. But he's got a very good defensive line in front of him. So if they can put the pressure on him, I think they can win this game. And you're right about that over 30, because there's this little voice that comes to me and says, he scored 3 touchdowns in 2 minutes and 22 seconds.
Yep.
And I had never seen that done before, neither had anybody else.
Yeah, it's something to think about, something to behold. I still think this is going to be a very close game on Sunday. Fourth quarter, it's still going to be in doubt, so make sure you got plenty of food and chips and your whatever. And I know I'll be in the basement, so I can do what I can do to watch the game. I know a lot of people like to get together and watch the Super Bowl with friends and family and whatever else. I still like to go to my basement and be by myself so I can watch the game.
Yeah, I'm a curmudgeon too.
I don't. It's not that I don't want to talk about the game while it's going on, but I want to be able to watch the game so that on Monday I can be like, hey, this is, you know, and this happened, and I remember what it was, and so sometimes I need that focus, and so by all means get out and enjoy the weekend, enjoy Super Bowl Sunday. It is another holiday for a lot of people.
Yeah, it certainly is.
And it's going to be a great football game. I really believe that. That's not hopeful. I think it really is, and like I said, but I think San Francisco wins it 27-25.
I got to go with you. I can't. If I could have a 27-26, that'd
27-26 might be better. Could be a 2-point conversion.
This is kind of the epitome of football. You have this wide open passing attack against, I mean, a throwback running attack. This is they actually use a fullback, you know, and the only other one that does that is the Vikings. So this is what I talk about, all my running philosophies and controlling the ball. Let's see if I'm right on this one.
We'll see if we're right. I do want to mention before we go here, the Bronco girls hockey team, they start their playoffs next Tuesday.
Okay,
if you can believe that. And then wrestling will be the following Tuesday. And then it looks like boys hockey, if they can get a win against Virginia on Friday night, that they would assure themselves of getting to the quarterfinal round as well on the following Tuesday, the 18th. And then girls basketball the following week, and then boys basketball that actually does not start their playoffs till the 5th of March for the Broncos. That seems forever away, but it'll be here
It
like
won't
that.
take long. This is winter. I got
What else? One other,
a couple of more things. Jonathan Thornton.
You want to talk about this guy? I thought about bringing it up, but I didn't put it on my piece of paper. Go ahead.
67 feet 3 1/4 inches.
This isn't the shot put, folks.
This is the shot put.
This is a gopher shot putter.
Look at this. Look at this guy. Do you think he can put the shots up? That's the second best.
Here, we'll put it up here. People can zoom in on that.
That's the second best shot, best put in the history of Gopher.
And the best in the NCAA this year. So indoors, and yeah.
He's another one of these guys. You take a look and say Olympics. I mean, 68 feet. This guy's putting it out there pretty good.
Yeah.
So I took a look at that and I thought, oh, I got to bring that up. And this won't take long.
Zion Williamson.
Zion Williamson is back.
And are you happy about that?
Well, I'll tell you, there's a couple of things since he's been back. He's been averaging 18 points in 8 rebounds a game. He's missed a total of 18 shots, and he's rebounded 18 of them himself. He's generating 3 putback possessions per game. I'll tell you what, Zion, he has incredible talent. He's 6'6", 290 pounds, and they're questioning whether or not he's too strong to play the NBA game. Remember last year he blew out a shoe and it cost him a knee, and so he goes up for a rebound and he comes down with that body weight. But he's in New Orleans. He's going to be, if he can withstand the pounding on his body, he is going to be a New Orleans icon.
That's what they said about LeBron. He's too big. He's too physical.
Yeah.
Zion will be just fine. I really believe. I know he has some regrets about leaving Duke.
Yeah.
He wishes that he'd stayed in college. that maybe shows you the maturity level a little bit. Maybe these guys are getting into the association.
They miss having him around. He would have been fun to watch in college. Right now he's dominating the pros. I mean, he's physically just overpowering everybody, and he's going to be on this weekend. I think that you're going to take a look and see the Pelicans. I didn't even know who the Pelicans were. The Pelicans are going to be on TV a lot.
Oh, absolutely.
And my guru told me that his first exhibition game in New Orleans, they sold out. And so the crowd's excited about him.
Yeah.
He's excited about playing, and they've been kind of taking it easy on him. They want to bring him back slowly but surely. So they pulled him out with 5 minutes in the last game in the fourth quarter, and they asked him about that. He says, "Well, I wanted to play, but I can see that they have an investment in me, but I'm not." And this is what he gets. He says, "I am only 19 years old."
Only 19.
That really caught me.
Yeah.
And some other good news that I get from my list here, Dusty Baker will be going to Houston. Houston desperately needs Dusty Baker. He was not only a fine manager when he was there, but
they need to try to get people off the cheating scandal.
They do, and you take a look at Dusty Baker. He never cheated a thing in his life. He's got that kind of personality.
Yeah. Some company put a hat out this week with a Houston Astros emblem on them with a garbage can alongside of it. I think that'll be a hot seller for a lot of people.
Yeah, it will.
This thing's not come to an end, and I think Major League Baseball, the commissioner and everybody in charge thinks that they levied their penalties. I think when they realize maybe that they went after and maybe their investigation left something to be desired, I just wonder if they won't impose more penalties.
There's people now blaming the commissioner of baseball for this. This is a lot of this cheating has happened since he's taken over, and
they're turning a blind eye to it.
The blind eye is really an amazing thing. I was reading a history book about Horatio Nelson, the great sailor for England. He only had one eye that he lost in battle, and so they says the admiral's putting up signals, and Nelson would take his spyglass and put it up to his no eye, and he says he couldn't see it, and so he kept on doing, and that was the original turn the blind eye.
Sure.
And I think sometimes you're right. Houston, I mean, they got a great team. They got great people. They've had an incredible run. But man, you're cheating. That so paints your program. It's just it's incredible.
Yeah, we can go on and on about that. That's for sure.
I want to take a couple of things here from this weekend. Reassembled Twins cast could be the best, and we're talking about Nelson Cruz. Over 40 years old, okay, he's all gone. Maybe you take a pay cut. Au contraire, they want 40 home runs from him again this year.
Absolutely.
And also for a man of this age to be swatting, they're going to say, just like Jim Toomey, because nobody wants to say.
Yeah, absolutely. The Twins. Yeah. The Twins will have somebody to trade mid-season. I said this a few weeks ago when they signed Donaldson. It will happen at some point. And I think I hate to say it's probably going to end up being Miguel at some point.
It might.
And it's going to be for 2 or 3 pitchers. It's not just going to be, maybe not for the superstar pitcher, but it's going to be for a guy who could throw right now. It's going to be a guy who's going to be there real soon. And it's going to be for a guy who's 1 or 2 years down the line. It's going to happen. Twins fans are probably going to be disappointed. Why would we trade somebody? The Twins, when Donaldson signed, that gave them leverage, gave them another player to be able to do that with. And maybe another team wants a rise, or maybe somebody wants whoever. So maybe somebody wants Nelson Cruz so that they can have a DH. I mean, the Twins have plenty of guys who can hit home runs, so it's going to be interesting to see how it all comes, how it all plays out. And of course, the start of the season will let everybody know what's happening there. And but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how many home runs this team can hit. They did say, obviously the laces on the baseball last year were laying down a little bit, and What kind of baseball will we get?
Well,
I mean, that has a lot to play with. How hard is it wound? How tight is it wound?
Well, and they were talking
else?
about that. They figured that that the commissioner knew about this baseball and you know
and okayed it, right?
And kind of turned a blind eye.
We haven't talked about what you've been reading recently. I know you're busy watching the impeachment, and you're busy with Tai Chi, and you're busy getting ready for this show and watching wrestling. But what have you been reading?
Well, like I just mentioned, Horatio Nelson. I'm reading a book called True North, and this is the story of 10 admirals through history. It's written by James Stavridis, who's on TV all the time. This little 5'5" sailor. He has been ahead of our Navy and ahead of NATO, and he is, he talks about how the Navy went from seamanship to mental ability because the ships became so much more complex, and that's when they started war colleges and things like that. They just have to. This guy would be an incredible professor. In fact, I'm pretty sure he lectures now.
Sure.
But Stavridis, and it's just a tiny little thing. I like this. The chapters are about 20 pages long, and right now I'm reading about Admiral Mahan, who at the turn of the century was real prophetic about things like Japan becoming a world power and attacking the United States and things like that. And so I'm reading about him. He would be my fourth or fifth admiral. Anyway, it's an incredible book, and every time Stavridis comes out with one, I kind of quickly grab it, scoop her up. We've got some other books being lined up, but you're always asking me about music, and yesterday I ordered a complete, definitive vinyl selection of the Eagles, and it's coming. And my wife told me that I had a $100 bonus coming from my credit card, and I thought, that's a discount.
So it is. That's the way it works.
So I will have rock and roll, but yeah, you got to read.
Darcy will be happy. This show's almost an hour. I told her last week we're trying to get them shorter. She said, "Oh no, we like the long shows. Those are good. They work." I'm like, well, there we are. I look up at the clock. We're almost an hour. Thanks everybody for watching.
Couldn't do it without you, Darcy. Couldn't do it without you.